In this video, I'm going to show you how I built this tiny home using sheets of plywood.
So I have a fair amount of experience building interiors and kitchens and woodwork, but sort of more related to building cupboards, fitted cupboards and that sort of thing. I have a little bit of metalwork experience and sort of general sort of decoration, putting up shelves, fitting in the occasional door, and maybe also just experimenting with things and experimenting with solving problems when I cut myself, as well as experimenting with safety as well. But anyway, most of what I do when I'm working in building kitchen units is just building boxes, and I found them to be quite easy to do. I was originally going to get a container and then cut spaces for windows and doors into the metal of the container, but that presents a really difficult challenge, as you have to insulate both sides of container. So where it goes in on the outside you have to insulate, and where it goes in on the inside you also have to insulate. So I figured maybe just building it in 2.4 meter boards would actually be, maybe better, and certainly lighter and easier to move around. So since the floorboards are also 1.2 meters wide, you have to be very accurate in placing your joists in exactly the right place so that the joining floorboards connect up really nicely and give you enough space to put screws on each side. I then fit another joist exactly in the middle of each board. This means that the joists are 600 millimeters apart, which is not really enough for heavy-duty traffic. You should really have it about 450 millimeters. But I figured since it's a storeroom and it's not really a heavy-duty workshop, that would be okay. So the first thing to do is to start on a corner. When you're working with big boards, you need somebody to help you, and then you put two sides of the corner, and then the end or the gable you have to cut down. I usually cut it about 200 millimeter below the height on the one side, so the slope of the roof goes from 2.4 meters to 2.2 meters. This is big enough for you to put a 2.1 meter door on the gable end or either one of the gable ends. So obviously you're not going to be gluing all these boards together. What I use is 38 by 38 millimeter battens, and basically every single corner and every single joint between boards gets covered by the batten and then screwed right through. You'll find that the roof board is slightly too short, so I put in this 76 by 38 batten just to hold it up. So just to make it a bit stronger, I put a 152 by 38 millimeter beam at the top, running the whole distance of the tiny house. The roof supports I put in are 76 by 38 millimeter structural pine timbers, and what I just did was cut a little slot on either sides of the join at the top of each board, so that the roof timber would just slot in there. If you want to use a board as a door, just remember that you're going to have to use quite a sturdy frame on the inside so that it can carry that weight. So here's my first one finished. I got the slope wrong and then couldn't fit a 2.1 meter door, so I had to build my own door and decided never to do that again. I had to build a table saw in order to just do that, and it's never really worked properly, so from now onwards I'm going to buy doors. Anyway, it turned out to be quite quaint. We decided to paint it white and then changed our mind when it was so incredibly bright we couldn't look at that end of the garden. We then tried to paint it grey and that was too hot, so we decided to clad it with corrugated iron and then paint the corrugated iron in as light a grey as possible. That still looked good. So this building is just a storeroom for building materials and bits and pieces. And as you can see, the roof timbers are a little bit weak to handle the load of the roof without bending a bit. I'm sure I can fix it at a later stage with some sort of a support. Also, the shelf units that I've built are exactly 1.2 meters apart, which allows me to put the main vertical bracket on the actual joint between the boards. So I got to kind of keep the boards stable and then do shelving at the same time. Around about the same time as we were finishing off the storeroom, I bought a plot up the west coast in Saldanha Bay, and I had plans to build a double-story house. But in the meantime, what I needed to do was build some sort of a storeroom so that people wouldn't steal my stuff, my concrete mixers. So the first thing I had to do was to flatten the site and then start again with my frame. In this one you can see there's a sort of the support structure that goes all the way, and that's actually so that I can slide this whole unit onto some sort of a trailer or roll it onto logs at some point if I need it out of the way when I'm putting my house down. For this one I used the polyface shutter ply. It's very waterproof and but awful to work with. It gets so incredibly hot you can't stand on it, or if you touch your arm against it on a hot sunny day it's really difficult. And it's also extremely dark when you're working inside. I'll never use it again. One of the reasons why I really like this way of working is that it's very difficult to get in. The shutter ply is quite a difficult barrier for a criminal to get into, and then if you still clad it with corrugated iron or metal sheeting, it works quite well. So here they try to crowbar open the window and weren't really successful. They also tried to rip a bit of the roof off, and that didn't work either. So the house is quite secure. I would say that probably as secure as a container. So the third project that I'm going to show you is the most recent one, which was originally a storeroom built in the same way, but I converted it into a tiny house that has a bathroom and a kitchen and a bedroom in it. So this is a SketchUp model, gives you a bit of a sense of what it looks like. Its position on the property is quite sort of picturesque in the corner. Started exactly the same way with the same system of flooring and 40 little foundations. I used OSB board this time, which I think was a bit of a mistake because it doesn't seem to be so rigid for a floor. With this build, I really needed a beam, a 152mm beam running the full length of the tiny house, so that I could add the extra section on. Here I am putting polystyrene panels on the inside between the 38 by 38mm battens. We attached the polystyrene panels with bottle caps and then plastered the whole inside of the tiny house. From here on, it was just a normal kitchen installation with tiling, windows, and everything that you need. I trimmed all the doors and windows with wood and painted everything with PVA. Next was the kitchen cupboards, which I used melamine boards for and then just sprayed it with epoxy paint, white epoxy paint. Gave the doors a nice glossy finish without having to pay for those expensive glossy doors. The next thing to do was to build a nice deck outside and some fencing to give the occupant a bit of privacy. The paving that I like to do is to cast a big slab of concrete about 50mm thick, and then I chop it up before it gets hard and then use that as pavers. So here are the final photographs of the tiny house. And we like the design. It's sort of a little bit masculine and a little bit feminine, with a very, very nice connection to the outside, somewhere where you can sit in private, and it seems to have a fair amount of light, which I think is quite good.